Hello and welcome to a brand new video. As you can probably tell by my t-shirt, it is Ewok time today. So we are going to be having a look at my vintage Ewok collection. Now, these figures are from 1985, so they are pretty ancient. They've been on Earth longer than me. So we will be looking at the prices that they go for, the details within the figures, and just having a look at the characters themselves and where they pop up in the movie Return of the Jedi. So yeah, with that being said, let's get straight into the video. Okay, so here is figure number 1, and it's quite a nice detailed figure to start with. His name is Logray, and for a complete Logray figure, you're probably looking at sort of £10 to £20 on eBay. Now, it's important to mention when talking about prices for these figures, it can really go up and down depending on whether they're coming with their accessories, their condition can affect the price, if they're sort of UK graded. There are a number of reasons why the prices might go up and down, so it's hard to give a real definitive figure. But for this guy, you're looking at sort of £10 to £20. Now, the actual character himself, he is Chief Shaman of Bright Tree Village. He is actually one of the main reasons why Luke and the Rebels and all of our favourite main characters nearly ended up barbecued. It wasn't until Luke used the Force to raise C-3PO that Logray and the rest of the Ewoks got spooked and set them free. But before that, Logray was well up for getting his knife and fork out and just eating all of our favourite heroes. But yeah, you can see him in certain scenes in Return of the Jedi. He's quite distinctive with his stripes. And yeah, I think it's quite a beautiful figure for that sort of price, really. Like, there's quite a lot of detail. He is quite distinctive, like I say, with his stripes. He's got that skull on his hood. Yeah, really cool figure to get started. So let's look at the second figure. Here is Paploo. He is one of my favourite figures. I just absolutely love him. I love his colouring. I love the feathers on his hood, the little white details. His face, for such an old figure, has so much character. Just the little details on his little button nose and his eyes and his mouth. And the fact he's got a completely different staff to all the other Ewoks, and just that unique colouring to his hood. Yeah, honestly, if you can't tell, I just love this figure. Like, I could just hold it and look at it all day. And for something so old, it's so delicate and beautiful. And yeah, I love it. For the price, it's sort of 30 to 50 quid on eBay, complete. He is actually part of the last 17. Now, I believe the last 17 were the last 17 figures produced by Kenner, the toy company Kenner, but I could be wrong. I should have probably done my research. I've never been too sort of familiar with the last 17 and what they actually are and all the information, but I'm sure I can look into it and confirm at another time. But he is part of that line, which sort of instantly bumps the price up just a little bit. Those figures in the last 17 can get really pricey, like in the hundreds, including some of the Ewoks that we're going to look at later. But as for the character himself, he is a cheeky little Ewok. He is actually the Ewok that steals the speeder in Return of the Jedi. So when they need that distraction, he sneaks up behind those stormtroopers and just jumps on one of their speeders and goes flying off into the distance. I love everything about this Ewok. I love the figure, and I love the actual character in Star Wars itself. This is Teebo, or Teebo. I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce his name. I'm going to go with Teebo for the rest of this clip. But this Ewok was completely different to Logray in the sense that he actually was well up for helping the Rebels and actually vetoed Logray. You can see him in scenes of Return of the Jedi. He's part of that original clan that finds the Rebels, our heroes in the movie, all tangled up in the net once they fell for that trap. Well, once Chewie fell for that trap. he is one of the main dominant sort of Ewoks there, and he is one of Chief Chirpa's best hunters. And apparently, by the time the sequel movies came about, he had actually replaced Logray as the shaman. So the actual figure itself is just, well, wonderful. The way I'm going to describe these figures is probably going to seem quite strange to some people. I'm just very passionate about like old sort of Star Wars figures and how they look and the details. So apologies if I get carried away with the way I'm describing them. But he is a wicked figure for the price. He goes for about £10 to £15 on eBay. And I mean, for that, just look at the detail. I mean, he's got half an animal skull as his hood. He's got a pickaxe. I'll just turn him around now so you can see his pickaxe properly. Not a euphemism. There you go. I'll put that back round. I'm just going to straighten him up a little bit because he's a little bit wonky now, and that will bug me and probably bug some of you. So 2 seconds. That literally made no difference, did it? Oh well, the thought was there. Yeah, just a wicked figure for that price. I mean, you can't go wrong. I just can't believe he's not worth more. Perhaps he was super common. I mean, you can find a lot of him on eBay compared to the others. But yeah, just a really, really nice sort of old vintage Star Wars toy. I probably don't need to introduce this Ewok, but for those of you who don't know, this is Wicket, and he is probably the most famous Ewok in the whole of Star Wars. He was the young little Ewok who stumbles across Leia in Return of the Jedi after she's come off that speeder. He is played by the legendary actor Warok Davis, and he actually has 2 spin-off movies, which I think are set about 5 years after Return of the Jedi. And I'm laughing because, believe it or not, Wicket can speak in those movies. He's a walking, talking Ewok. He speaks English. He makes a little mate called Sindel, and they adventure around together. One of the movies is called Caravan of Courage, and the other one, which is my personal favourite, and I loved it growing up. Like, I could not look at forests the same way. I used to walk through the woods and sort of say to my mum, are there Ewoks here? Are there any Ewoks hiding in these trees? Like, I was obsessed. It was called Battle for Endor, and the battle scene at the end of that movie is so good. Like, you see the Ewoks in all their glory, like more than Return of the Jedi, I would argue. Yeah, but what a figure this is. I mean, he's tiny. He is literally tiny. The smallest Ewok figure by far. The detail in his hood, I mean, it's all you've got sort of stitching at the top, which you don't really see on all of them. And this figure costs about probably 16, 17 quid. Sort of, I'd say under 20 complete. A lot of these spears now are sort of reproduced because his is like the generic Ewok spear. Really easy for people to make, I think. So a lot of them are sort of reproduced now. But yeah, I probably didn't need to tell you guys about him because you probably already know. But for those of you who don't, real sort of famous Star Wars character. The complete opposite to Wicket in every sense of the word. What a chunk. I love this figure. I will spin him round so you can have a little look at his physique. He is a thick boy. This juicy Ewok is called Romba, and again, he is part of the last 17. Now, his sort of figure's incomplete, you know, without the hood, or maybe with a spear, or, you know, vice versa. Those figures go for about £70, and then, you know, UK graded, which is the only figures I could find, you know, when they've been sent off and graded for their condition, that can be anything between 100, and I saw some on there for as much as 270. So quite a rare figure. He doesn't appear on eBay that much. As for the movie Return of the Jedi, Romba can be seen setting up traps and he is also part of a very famous scene, a really sad scene, where two Ewok friends are running away from an ATST and it blasts them. And Romba gets up, but his friend doesn't. And you see Romba going over to his friend, checking to see if he's okay, and then falling to his knees. It's a very, very sad scene. It always stuck with me as a kid, and I remember watching that over and over again. I think because I watched the movies very young, I think that was one of the first times I was probably exposed to like death and seeing death, albeit it was in a Star Wars movie and it was an Ewok. So yeah, I think that's why that scene stuck with me, and we're not used to seeing really cute things like that die, are we? It's just not something we're used to seeing. So that scene always stuck with me, and I'm sure a lot of you can remember it yourselves. But the figure itself is wicked, like just the size of him, and he's got a smaller hood, he's got an accessory belt. I love that he's got like a big button nose and that his teeth are on show. Yeah, brilliant figure, really, really like it, and I can see why it's so expensive, and again, that might be that, last 17 effect as well. Probably my favourite figure of them all for lots of different reasons. This is Warok. Now, I think he is the most expensive figure of the lot. He is part of the last 17, and I believe he goes for anywhere between £200 to £300. I'm sure you can find them cheaper, but every figure I could find, I mean, there's not many on eBay, that was the sort of range that they were getting bid for and bought for. Now, we don't really know a lot about him as a character. I only found out recently that he is actually Teebo's dad. He looks bloody good for his age, I must say, because Teebo looks old, but this guy, I mean, he's looking good. Apparently, he can be seen on a hand glider during Return of the Jedi. I haven't gone back to look at that scene, and I can't find any images of that on Google. So apparently he is one of the Ewoks that flies around in the hang glider. Apparently he is also one of the best warriors. But he is just one of my favourite figures because the detail and his expression, it almost looks like he's sort of tilting his head to the side, and he's very sort of curious as to what he's looking at. If you look closely, his teeth are also on show. He's got like a lovely little green feather in the top left hand side of his hood. He comes with the arrow accessories and the black bow. But for me, it's just the expression. I think that captures the Ewoks' expressions perfectly. Very inquisitive, curious creatures, particularly if they've not seen you before. And for me personally, I remember getting this Ewok from my granddad as a Christmas or birthday present. I can't remember which one. But I remember, unpackaging it and then having it in the little plastic sealed bag and just falling in love with it. And for me now, because that was from my granddad, that is, that's why it's probably my favourite figure of them all. Plus, just the detail and the shape of him, I love it, I really do. It's a shame I don't know more about the character itself, but the actual toy is very, very special to me. So, very similar to Warok, this is Lumat. He is also part of the last 17 and goes for anything in the sort of £60 region on eBay. He is chief woodcutter, archer, and also a wood carver, and that is about all we know about Lumat. He is a bit of a funny one. The continuity on him changes. He sort of changes fur colour in some references, so sometimes he has stripes and other times he is sort of a pale blonde Ewok. And ironically, the fur colour doesn't know what it's doing on my figure either. He unfortunately suffered with sun damage. I didn't realise that displaying these figures in a glass case in my very sunny flat would damage him. So I don't know if there's anything you can do about that. If anyone's watching this and knows if there is a solution, I've read a few bits and pieces, so I might experiment with a few different chemicals, but I'd be very, worried about it. I'd have to do it in tiny doses because I wouldn't want to permanently damage this figure, as I believe it's another one that my granddad got me for birthday and Christmas. But the figure itself, again, it's very similar to Warok, and I have left my TV on, 2 seconds. Let me turn that off. It is very similar to Warok with the bow and arrow, the hood, the arrows, the expression on his face. He's got, a slightly different colouring to his lips and his nose, but then again, that might be the sun damage. But yeah, a lovely, lovely figure, and he has a brown bow instead of a black bow. But yeah, I love this figure. Like I say, it's just a shame it's had that sun damage, but I'm sure I'll find a way to fix that. But for now, I'm going to get him away and out of the light. Sorry, before I pack him away, it's just worth noting the lovely stitching on the back of his hood and the fact that his arrows have got white tips to them. Little details like that I just absolutely love. But yeah, let me get him safely packaged away from the sunlight. Last but not least, we've got Chief Chirpa, the leader of the Ewok tribe on Bright Tree Village. He was the chief for 42 seasons, and he can be seen in a lot of the scenes in Return of the Jedi which involve the Ewoks. And he actually gave the green light for the Ewok tribe to help the rebels in taking down the Empire on Endor. He is actually probably the most common figure of them all. He goes for about £5 complete on eBay, which is an absolute bargain when you look at the detail of him. Like his belt, he's got an amulet, there's a lot of hidden details on that hood. Not to mention, he's got quite a lot of definition in his fur, a bit like Warok. There's like, can you see like well, like I say, the definition, the grooves, and the way the fur sort of overlaps his belt. Little details like that I just love, and this will always be a special figure for me because this exact figure here was my first ever Ewok figure. I got this around the time when eBay came out, believe it or not. So obviously I grew up with the prequels, and I used to rent the VHS, the video from the library for Return of the Jedi, and I just never thought it would be possible to own an Ewok figure. I didn't know they existed. And then eBay came out, and I'd be on my dad's computer just typing away Ewok into eBay, and he came up, and I will never forget it. Like, my dad got the figure for me. With anything, back then you had to wait a little while for it to get posted to you. And I have a real distinct memory of being on my mum and dad's bed, young kid, just sat there, in my pants, and this sort of brown envelope is there. I open it up, and inside, like, all my dreams finally came true. I had an Ewok toy, like an actual Ewok figure. And my God, did I fall in love with it. Like, you can see he's not in the best condition. His leg is a bit loose now, if you can see that groove there. I would carry this guy around in my pocket. He was my best mate. Like, I just loved him. And he didn't have a spear back then. I've since bought him his staff. It's a really nice detail. Almost looks like a bone at the end of it, but I'm not entirely sure what it is. But yeah, cheap, cheery, beautiful figure that means a lot to me and meant a lot to me growing up as well. So that is every figure I've been through now, so let's round up the video. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. I love making content like this. Like, to be able to share my passion with other people is just amazing. And if you did enjoy the video, then I would really appreciate a like, and also let me know in the comments which figure is your favourite, like which one stands out to you. Like I said, for me personally, it's Warok, but there are some, sentimental reasons attached to that as well, so I would be really interested to hear what you guys think. And yeah, if you do enjoy this sort of video, then do subscribe, I would love that. And that is a wrap really. Enjoy the rest of your day, evening, morning, whatever it is where you are, and I will catch you guys soon.